It's that sort of message. We're all going to travel the same journey. There's another word I have grown to hate. That was like a Christmas advert for a turkey. I have grown to hate.
Yeah. Well, glad you guys had a good dialogue between the two of you. So
yeah, we tend to do that.
Thanks for listening.
We're going to go. Good evening and welcome to episode 6 of the InfoMatters Podcast. I'm Kenny and this is...
I'm here,
Danny's here, yep. And this week time, depending on when we recorded this, coming live, of course, from our secret... Well, not live, post-recorded, pre-recorded.
Secret bunker,
exactly. We're going to talk a little bit about digital transformation, which can mean a multitude of things, and we've found really nice guy to talk about that. But first, of course, the business of the podcast, I'm handing over to Danny.
Yeah, thanks again for all your feedback, all of your comments on the link below. Don't forget, if you enjoy the podcast, to ring the bell and subscribe. Yep. And as always, thank you to our partner, Xtelligence, who powers InfoMatters Podcast. Again, go to xtelligence.cz.com. It's in the box below. Yep. If you are in the world of IT, you want to know more about the topics we're talking about, or you're interested in a new role, changing the current position that you've got, you want to get in the sexy world of IT, everything's in the comments box below, or you can email us directly, host@infomatterspodcast.com. So as we said, it's digital transformation. Now, if you do see the guest later on in the series or the episode with a blonde wig, that's the transformation we're not talking about. But we might squeeze in the odd dump here and there, and we're going to find out from our first guest, who's Adler. Thanks for joining the show today.
Good to have you on, big man. So, now, do we know Adler, Danny?
Do we know him? Now, of course we know him.
Of course we know him.
Who would have a guest that we don't know in the studio today? But we haven't worked together.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, we've worked with almost all of the guests to date.
Although he has worked with our first guest, which was David, in pharmaceutical companies.
The world is
like I say, this bunker's secretive, but we managed to drag these people in from all over the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we didn't really work together. We were just kind of hanging around in the same
building, same email address, that sort of stuff, huh?
Exactly.
So, Adler, drawing on your extensive expertise, we thought this week we'd talk a little bit about digital transformation. Now, when I think of digital transformation, I kind of go...
What?
Yeah, and a little bit of what.
That's what I mean, born with.
Because every project, Danny, it's fair to say that we've been on has included a bit of transformation, and sometimes there's transformation on transformation, and they use the word transformation because apparently it's sexy and people get really excited, whereas I used to get really cheesed off. Give us a quick summary of what you think, or indeed your view of digital transformation is.
Or how you use it.
Or how you use it. I know, when do you start, right?
Use it in a sentence.
Yeah. With 3 transformations.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I don't really feel like I can give you that level of details.
Right, next guest. 65417 hashtag. Come in.
Yeah, so thanks for your time.
That was a quickie show, I think.
Absolutely right. Number of seconds.
So I didn't realise this was an interrupting show. I just thought you ask questions and I answer. But
busted.
But so the reason is that it's to me it means different in every organisation, every team, and every purpose. There is no one single definition that could fit to digital transformation. Yep. It could be the nature of company that changes, that you have to adapt and adjust. It could be that you're changing mindset of the team to be more adapted to the business of the company.
Okay. So the digital transformation is of the business itself, or processes, or the solutions that are in place, or
so it could be anything depending on the situation. It could be for some companies that I work, for example, transformation starts from the nature of the business. That the business starts from completely something.
They almost do a kind of what they call in the startup world as a kind of pivot.
Exactly. Because now it's the time and that a lot of companies are shifting from old-fashioned businesses from things that they didn't really fit into the current digital world, and they are transforming the business that we call that also.
I guess that makes sense. I mean, I think if what Adler you're saying is when if you're as companies, I guess, evolve, they move from. They would say analog and paper-based. They move to more digital and online signings. Kind of one thing that springs to mind, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, as an example, we know that the company that I worked for, we started as a fuel company, and the fuel business to payment systems, and all the way now to telematics, to digital solutions that bundle in all the services and solutions for trucking businesses. That is a completely it's a complete transformation. And what I usually use as a metaphor is basically
that's a big word. 1, 2, 3, dump.
Is a metaphor of boop. No, it's usually I say that we are a caterpillar turned into a butterfly, which is a very painful process. Yeah, I don't always say wrong things.
Could be the butterfly effect, having Adler here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is a very painful process, but it's in the end, if you can survive it, it turns to something really beautiful and something that actually is very
is worthwhile doing, I guess. Now, I mean, again, Danny, drawing on our experience in transformation, the change,
deep breath.
The deep breath. We always say, or indeed, I've always said that coexistence is a bit of a bitch. You know, you've got the start of the new and the legacy of the old, and when you're project managing to get the change done, it can just change.
That floated around in rehearsal.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be really hard, and we've worked on a few changes, and we've done some of the kind of true digital transformation. But I guess transformation in any form is difficult, and so. We've historically talked about cybersecurity, but I imagine when you're talking about digital transformation, you're talking multi-year projects, you're talking people change, tech change, you're talking legal change, geography changes, I imagine, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Stick that all together.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things that you just mentioned, which is, I think, the golden piece of this, is about the mindset and people change.
Yeah, no end user. Likes change. Unless you go, here's a new laptop, here's a Revolut Platinum card, and a holiday in the Bahamas.
Yeah,
and even then you struggle.
Yeah, exactly, because there is a period of, as you mentioned, there's a period of duplicity. There is a period that you have overlap from the old to the new, and that period is very painful for a lot of people because you have to basically split your agenda into two different worlds until the full transformation happens. And it's something that a lot of people either don't have the capacity and bandwidth to deal with, or is something that a lot of people don't even want to do. They just.
And how do you, in your experience, how have you overcome that? Yeah. So if you're transforming a process, for example, and people don't like process change, simple as that. I get things wrong every day, standard, because a process changed. Mm-hmm. Or today I was working with a team, and you've worked in pharma many years. Yep. Documentation is out the yin yang. So, we need an architectural handbook. Okay, and that's, by the way, that's not painting Leonardo DiCaprio's bumhole inside a binder. And so start filling out the form with, a technical writer. And this is 2 weeks ago. And today it comes in and goes, oh no, it's on Confluence now, which I don't have access to because I don't have the right credentials to get to it. So I'm like, well, bum you, I'm off to do a podcast. Yeah. And it's just one little miscommunication that even with the change taking place, no one's communicated about this transformation in processes. Is that the kind of thing that you experience yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are different ways that I usually try to deal with. For example, I entered a company that we were going through this, that we had some integration projects and some acquisitions that we had to integrate into our systems and domains. And there is a period of time that there will be duplicated identity accounts and such, that people basically, from the previous experiences, I realized that people hate that kind of stuff. So I put a workshop together to capture the lessons learned from the previous experience. This was the repeating pattern, that duplicate identities we don't like. So what I did, I extended that period before the integration start to the maximum amount so that we can minimize the duplicate period, so that we will be more like a switch over rather than
more of a quick switch than an elongated over.
Yeah, then going low hanging fruit. Yeah, everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is sometimes more expensive, and sometimes it's a bit more dramatic in terms of
it's
preparation.
Very stark and sudden.
But you don't bring the service desk down, and the repercussions aren't as bad because you waterfalled it through.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but also I think one of the things to prepare mindset and culture for that kind of change is to try to link the value that the company has to the work that people are doing. Right. To try to bring the personalize it for them, to make it personal for people, that they understand why they're doing this, how they are adding value, and how is it even valuable for themselves, not just for the company.
Here's your 6 months. Bye.
Well, I mean, we digital transformation can have negative impacts on headcount and that sort of stuff. We've seen that as well. One of the questions that Danny and I prepared was, talking. That sounds like a kind of decent strategy for helping people through the change. And there's always the "what's in it for me" type question that everyone arguably selfishly ask themselves, why should I do this? Why should I go through the pain of this? It seems a good strategy when you get everyone in I was going to say in a room, but in a virtual room now. You brief them on this. You lessen the pain. You rip the Band-Aid off. It's maybe a painful weekend, but it's not a painful 3 months.
Well, you mean you have to drive that through leadership as well.
Yes,
comms has got to cascade down, regardless of the transformation. It's got to be. It's got to be known.
Absolutely, you need to build that trust from the leadership so that people understand why they're following that pattern and why they're going through all that pain. Yeah. Because if you just go and say, it comes from the top and we have to do this, nobody ever in life in anything. They just do something because you tell them to do it. Yeah. People do things.
It would be maybe a little bit easier, but yes, people they need to be bought in.
People do things because they want to do it. Yeah. And you need to make them want to do it. It has to be. You have to basically plant the idea in their head that they want to do it.
Yeah. Good point.
It's a little bit, and I don't know if I like it, but with all the family and all that kind of speak. I mean, I personally like to have sometimes a little bit of distance between who I work with and family, but I guess it's that sort of message. We're all going to travel the same journey. There's another word I have grown to hate.
That was like a Christmas advert for a turkey. I have grown to hate.
We're all on the same journey. Oh God!
Like a quavers, you bastard.
I like his Scottish accent. Grown to hate.
It did pop in there, didn't it? 2 pints of heavy.
I knew that was coming.
Sound like Shrek.
I know. Donkey.
That'll do.
There you go.
Where did we get to? I forgot now. So we're on the same journey and all that kind of stuff. And I imagine that we never said this would not be.
Actually, the producer this week is actually having a giggle. Last week he fell asleep watching the.
We can spin the camera around you and see him literally trying to hold you. He's having a fit over the corner. Anyway, moving on. That'll do, donkey. It's a decent strategy for kind of hammering the message home and that sort of stuff. I mean, and that sounds all very positive, but I imagine that there are some negative effects of digital transformation, and I imagine, like the reduction in headcount, if you're doing things more digitally, do we require less people? We've had loads of conversations about the effect of AI on the world and the fear of people losing their jobs.
Yeah.
That can be a big...
We had the FBI in here.
Well, they weren't in there. We couldn't get in here, but they wanted to get in here. Yeah,
we left him here, by the way. He's under the table.
No, absolutely. There are the effects for workforce and resources, as you said. There are also effects of these transformations because, as we talked about it earlier, they're very lengthy, and there are things that sometimes the leadership change, the strategy change. So you spend a lot of time and effort on something that you don't even finish at the end. And you have to.
Sounds like most projects.
And I think that's one of the common patterns that a lot of these things, they never finish, and before you even finish it, something else comes, a new technology,
which always tips over into, because everything always comes into your return on investment, your ROI. And as you've said, projects just go, and then another project bolts on because that's becoming archaic, and then that gets bolted on. And at the end of the day, you've got a user sat there going, well, I do payroll. Yeah, but this is affecting my payroll, and it affects every member of staff, and then the tickets go through the roof. And
there's constant change, and people get sick of change fatigue, which is something we should probably talk about in another podcast.
Yeah, and that's when they lose their
they lose their commitment, they lose their interest in the company. They may even resign and or leave. Well, leave.
Yeah. So how do you maintain those initiatives? I suppose. I mean, we've all been through it. We're all doing them in different companies, different ways, different times. But
to be honest, what I learned, and it's nothing to do with IT or anything technical. What I learned in my experience is the more transparent and honest you are, the more trust you can build with people. Because what I do now, when we go, I just tell people openly that, look, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be very bumpy. And we might never even finish it. It might never come to what we think we're going to come now. It's something that we're just going to have to experience and build together. But the only way we can do it is if we row all together in the same direction. Okay. Otherwise, we can't do it. And I just lay it in front of them that to build up the resilience for the change, because change is the only
word
constant.
For it.
Actually, when we Mr. Graff, I think Paul, beg your pardon, on one of the podcasts, he talked a lot about embedding, or indeed earning and then embedding trust in whatever management you have in place or you're working with, and having that kind of cascade down. I have been in environments where, and I've seen in some of these virtual town halls, people say, I resign because a further transformation is announced when an existing
what
transformation hasn't completed.
Right, this one just gets implemented with huge amount of
effort and money and
and doesn't necessarily work because you've done a proof of concept, but then you've gone big scale.
Yeah.
And then as they've done that, you go, they were my pilot group, so I'll use them again.
Yeah.
And you get the same, like,
and
test
people are
bunnies the whole
constantly guinea
time.
pigged.
And they're like, piss off. I mean, look at my machine. It's got flares coming out of its rectum. I don't want a new machine or a holiday. I want to get
Windows 24. Windows 24. I mean, that's assuming, and Danny and I have done tech change most of our careers, but the real business change, the stuff that makes the repeatable processes painful, finding out you don't have access to something when you're trying to kick out a document, you're trying to get stuff done, and having the silly problem of no access because the new system's not been extended, and
So what we're saying on the back of that, that question that you've answered is to maintain a successful transformation is to maintain. I'm going to get 3 maintains in, like you got 3 transformations in. Is to maintain that transparency with the end user estate or whoever that change is going out to, including management, because obviously you've got to report your stakeholders.
To set this expectations, because if you just promise the unicorns
that everything's going to be okay,
and then hide at midnight,
and then in the end you just come and say, and this is why I think one of the biggest initiatives now is to bring IT as close as possible to the business,
right? To
make sure that we bridge that gaps, because usually the business goes and promises something and they just paint this picture.
Well, they get involved at they sign off on it's going to cost 8 million.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
You've got 8 million.
And then they just want green lights.
They dump it on IT at the end.
Hey! Ring the bell, subscribe, put your comments below. I got it in, and I didn't say a thing. That's it. The 6th guest to say parallel dumping last time.
Is it like a bet?
No, he just gets really excited about dumping.
I know I can get every guest to say dump without actually thinking about it. If I say it enough at the start, like rainbowing, dump.
The viewers are going to go, what the hell's going on? Sorry, Adler.
Happened to me a lot, so I'm used to it.
Getting dumped on.
Dump.
Yeah, but it's something that is usually there's a separation that the business decides and they make promises to stakeholders, and then
they look to IT,
dump it on IT, and you say you do it, and then you just end up with an unexpected the budget that is out of expectations.
It's not
unrealistic
and chaos ensues.
Yeah, and it's just something that you don't really. I'm now trying to bring that together and close that gap between the business and IT. So you will be involved earlier on in the decision making, in the planning, in all the setting the expectations to make sure we kind of.
I mean, that's an age-old story of the business being either IT not being as responsive as they need to be, the business driving ahead. I mean, the origins of Salesforce way back in the start was the Salesforce guys would just go and buy it and tell IT they'd bought it.
Yeah.
No, it was cloud-based. There wasn't really much to do, but there was other concerns of data security. Now that was kind of how they surged forward. So yes, that sounds like a cracking strategy. If you're for some of these multi-year efforts, and when you're trying to avoid change fatigue and keep your good people and all that sort of stuff, do you incentivize? How do you kind of track, or do you need to track all the way through? I'm not suggesting employee happiness, or maybe this employee happiness is a thing,
I mean, the end goal is delivering the initiative, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
you need to keep the knowledge in the building, and you need to keep the bums in seats to do that, and that's a lot of things to juggle. Right?
I mean, you obviously have to reward and recognize this. You have to set small wins and goals that you can constantly achieve, and you can constantly remind people that they achieve. Because if you just set a big goal in the end, and it takes you months or years to get there, nobody's going to be motivated to follow that path. So you have to break it down.
Far away almost.
You have to break it down to small goals and incentivize it, and make sure that you constantly reward and recognize, which is one of the kind of a tricky part in there, because everyone's different. Somebody likes a praise in public. Somebody gets embarrassed. They just want a quiet, pat in the back. So it's a little bit difficult.
Yeah, then you see him on CNN. I'm like, oh, you work for me.
Yeah. So I just go for the common approach of ignoring everybody.
Welcome to the club.
Can I go slightly against what you've been telling us by now?
So knowliage and training.
Consistent ignoring.
Knowledge and training is key in any transformation.
Knowledge retention for sure.
And it's linked to what you just said, that to maintain that knowledge is one of the things that we struggle all the time, because it usually stays with people. You don't have the knowledge base or the knowledge tool to maintain all, because you're going through changes.
Yeah.
So the knowledge constantly changes. So it's challenging to keep track of that. So knowledge stays with people, and then when you
walk out the door,
and you have a lot of single person dependencies. That there's one person who knows and who has the knowledge, and they walk out the door, and you're crippled in that area.
If you've got kind of key man dependency or key person depending, which you take, of course.
That's one of the biggest challenges that we constantly face, to how to keep the knowledge and how to make sure that there is, there is the backup for that knowledge.
And how do you do that? You do that by incentivizing. Or you're just good at managing your team, I suppose. But
well, I mean, people say they leave managers. They don't leave companies. They leave managers. So if you had a good manager, and of course we believe you to be, I imagine that's a key measurement of the relationship you have with your stakeholders and your people.
Yeah, absolutely. But also measures that we're trying to take is to diversify the knowledge, so you don't have it all piled up in one place.
Yeah.
So you ensure that people are working with each other, collaborating, training each other, sharing knowledge, learning from each other. That's also part of the incentivization, because they have the motivation to develop themselves and each other. So a lot of people, especially in the IT world, people are keen to learn new things, new technologies, and stuff like that.
You kind of grow old, don't you? If you're in our world, I don't mean just from a technical perspective. And by the way,
150 years on the table.
To keep interest.
And 700 behind the camera.
Just between them two.
I just had a birthday, but I'm not that old. A lot of people, especially engineers, or if you're a techie, if you don't keep up to date, they get bored and they walk out the door. If you don't,
speed of change, that things are constantly moving.
For sure.
I mean, you lose team members because you don't give me training. I haven't got a new certification in Microsoft Wibblewaff, or I haven't got a Cisco cryogenic.
And that's the thing, that you don't always have to put them into official training and certificate program. You can just put them into teamwork in a way that you pass your knowledge to that person,
or even the conversation transfer some knowledge.
Create some collaborative environment that they can connect and work with.
Sometimes it's difficult because you tend to find them wearing flip-flops with a mousetrap under the table, and an Ethernet cable,
all that kind of stuff. They're not the most approachable people sometimes. I mean, of course, we're
chewing on the colleagues' shoes.
We're stereotyping engineers here, but some of course are not that way.
And by the way, if you are an engineer, again below, extelligence.cz. Tons of positions out there
good point.
that'll match you like-minded people like us.
Exactly. I was going to say I spent some time in a learning program where the business of the program, it was funded over 4 years. To a degree, a transformation program was, because in this organisation, within 10 years, the average age of the people would be of millennial age. Millennials are typically not incentivised purely by cash. They want to feel the love. They need a hug and a coffee and all that kind of trendy stuff, but they also, when it comes to learning, they want, and it's not just like you say, the certified learning. They wanted to just, for their own benefit, learn new stuff. They didn't need to benefit the company they were in, keep ahead of the curve. But that was how they thought they were going to be incentivized, and a massive training program was released,
which will have a knock-on effect if you're relying on XYZ engineers to implement a transformation on the back end. And they lose interest because you're focused on the return on investment, or hitting a tailgate for your project. You've got to keep everybody in mind, which is what you're hitting on.
And of course, when you think about incentives, when you're looking at in certain geographies of the world that are very concentrated and have big brands, the big company down the street that's got a new transformation program that's just started and is really exciting, there's a vacuum of stuff in there, versus the one that you're 3 years into and you've lost all faith in. It can be really hard.
I mean, it must be fair. You go into Microsoft's offices, you can go and play the drums, play guitar, and have a cigar.
We had there was prosecco in the fridge, I think, when we were there, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there was.
We know because we drank it.
Alcohol free.
Some years ago.
We're talking about incentivizing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and
is this grape juice on the table?
Apple juice. On that, I believe Microsoft had done some analysis, and if they gave their staff a sandwich every day and some orange juice and that kind of stuff, and somewhere to have a snooze, they were 40% more productive. I don't know if that's entirely true. That was the word on the street.
And I mean, as you said, these are things that work differently for everyone.
I mean, Microsoft has that kind of cool startup.
It depends on the culture. It depends on the personal motivation.
Actually, that's a good point. Motivation now, post-COVID, is everyone likes to be. There's two schools of thought. One is back in the office part-time, or three schools of thought, back in the office full-time. In my case, you pick and choose where you're most productive, and I love that the fact that I have that choice, which means the Google Plexes and the Microsoft pool rooms and all that kind of stuff are vastly redundant. because nobody's there. And we've always said there'll be
pretty much.
We've always said that, well, indeed, I've always said, we've talked about it, there'll be a lot of, in some major cities, there'll be a lot of cool New York-style apartment buildings coming up that used to be offices because they need to be repurposed. And of course,
well, these transformations don't always work. I mean, just a simplistic thing. Like we all used to use Outlook as a client.
Yep.
Which, me personally, works way better than Office 365. The functionality is different. Okay, it's not as quick and blah.
Yeah.
But even little things like that, you bear in mind that 80% of your end users are not computer savvy and they're not interested in joining a program to do what the management team, whether it saves 8 million a year or it's nice and shiny with bells on it or it's on your toolbar. You don't want to impact the end user at the end of the day. So digital transformation has to be, I suppose, as seamless and.
But it's sexy, Denny.
It sounds sexy. But like I said at the start of the show, I want some graphics on here with. I want a blonde wig on Adler.
Yeah, I know.
That's not like a Hulk Hogan look, producer. I want a Hulk Hogan look on Adler.
Adler will be Adlerette next week. All that kind of stuff.
Adler Mobasser.
Yeah, exactly. And of course we should. I mean, transformation tends to be multi-years, has massive impacts on headcount and the kind of, I guess, the mood of the office and that sort of stuff. You wouldn't just want to do it for transformation's sake. And we have witnessed some change, and you think, why are you changing that? It works. It's current. We don't need. It doesn't need to
still running.
Yeah. But then you end up with dependencies on dependencies. We have to change this because in 4 years we're going to do it again. The kind of that ever-changing cycle of course, there's nothing constant but change.
I mean, have you got an example of something that you've tried to implement or you've started to implement? Problems have occurred that you've overcome it with this kind of approach?
We always say in the podcast, every man or lady needs a story. So give us a story, Adler, of either majestic success or majestic failure.
Majestic, yeah. So we are going through a lot of integration, and the integrations are involving, exactly as you said, end users that are going to be impacted because there is going to be a transition
positively or negatively, potentially, I imagine.
Yeah, and that's the thing that one of the things that I mentioned earlier about minimizing that duplicate identity time by stretching the preparation and making the higher impact at a lower amount of time. That's the kind of thing that we are now aiming to do. And also, one thing that you mentioned, I think, is the key to keep the balance of not impacting the end user, but also satisfying the stakeholders and leadership. Because most of the time, leadership is not really interested in the impact of end user.
Which is
they just want the results. And when it's done,
they're KPI'd or bonused on whatever the outcome is.
Yeah, because you have shareholders that are promised something, that they are waiting for that, and they are not very patient, and they don't really care about.
They don't care about Adler.
We had a belter in the last contract I was doing. Sorry to go off beat with yours there, Adler. And so we had a proof of concept, and there was 10 users. And it was a simple thing. It was a small agent that gets deployed to your mobile or your laptop device for basically a very secure VPN connection, zero trust.
Right.
We talked about it before. So there's a list of users, and they've come from the VIP team, the white glove team. They've come from the desktop team, from finance, from HR, procurement. Just give us one member of each, apart from the VP. And we'll go ahead and do the POC. We're going to inform them. The change request has been approved. Yep. I'll call each individual first to do it, which we did. But one of the users that was in there was a VP, was aware of it and agreed to it. Because it was implemented wrong and certain ports weren't open, it went south. So all it meant was he couldn't connect to his Outlook whilst he was on probably in a limousine or on a plane for a period of 10 minutes. So all the bells and whistles went off. A P1 gets raised. Your pants come down. You bend over.
You take one for the team.
I'm off to the Alps. And
that kind of.
And the kind of the way I did, not a lessons learned, but panic kept my contract is I know it's bad that this has happened, but it's gone through X levels of review.
Governance and change.
Everybody said we're happy with this base of users, and you got screwed. Well, now you see what happens when you do this to 8,500 users in a big bang.
Because there'll be a percentage of those
for something as simple as this, with great communications, a change in place, the change management team aware, the whole tech team aware, and I couldn't connect for 30 minutes. Now, at VP level, when you're chatting to the CEO, it's expensive, but the kind of way I burrowed my way out of it, was, at least you see, by rushing us to do something without communicating properly and without talking to the end user who use it, then this happens, and this is with thorough preparation.
Yeah.
So
and of course everyone looks for that gracious land of zero impact change. But
exactly,
all that kind of stuff. There's an echo in here. We'll seek to do that, but of course in this hybrid world of home working, the 4 office walls are extended down the street, round the corner, into the lounge of wherever you're working. These are environment variables you can't control. And so managing that sort of change, if indeed that's part of the transformation, is just you accept a degree of hit, as it were, as long as you have the steps there to break.
And a lot of it falls on. You might have found yourself, Adler, is with data. Yeah. So you're given data as the rule of thumb. This is clean data.
Yeah.
And then you go and start to try and roll something out. In fact, you were saying before duplication.
Yeah.
Well, this has gone to Terry 1, but it's Terry 2 who's active. So all Terry and Joan and Billy Bob Thornton 3. Nothing's happening because the data's incorrect, and that's just another part of the world.
I'd love to see your stakeholders as Billy, Tommy Nutmeg, or whatever the names you came out with, mate. Choice. Absolutely.
Yeah, but that's another can of worm on its own.
Yeah, avoid a conversation.
Data is never right in my eye, because even if you have the cleanest data, it's only clean for 5 minutes.
Like right now.
It was clean last November, love.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right now, it's right. And somebody said to me, I've been told many times, the data's as good as it's going to get now. Go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. So how do you digitally transform a small organisation, a large organisation, when the paper you're wiping with is covered in maca?
Exactly, and that's the kind of risk you need to identify early on, and you need to communicate. You have to make sure that your risks are clear, and you have the options with all the costs and the risk and the resources and everything is clear, and you lay it out to the stakeholders.
And you spell it out.
And you set the expectations right. This
is what we're dealing with.
Yeah, because if you just kind of go and say, oh, everything is 100% and I've delivered this and I'll do this, and then you just go and
I know who says that all the time.
Well, surely somebody who's done project management 101 for 1 day is never going. Well, I mean, maybe you would say everything's fine and nothing's ever going to be bad. Would be just career suicide, but maybe people do say that. I would be immediately suspicious of.
We call those people salesmen.
Controversial.
It'll reduce the size of your head.
Project management has in the past has been referred to as a sales prevention department. I don't agree with it, but
it's definitely a wife prevention system. That's for sure.
It can be a career limiting career choice, as it were.
By the way, we're not putting anyone off project management here. There's also plenty of positions if you contact us.
Absolutely, Excelling will have loads of positions.
If you're a salesman, we're not hating you.
We're not hating on you. You're more
because without sales, no company exists.
Well, every company needs sales, and so we have massive respect for those.
Well, what's interesting? So what we kind of circled round. I mean, the idea when we kicked this off was digital transformation. How's it changed the tools, the industry? Most people think from a technology perspective. So we're moving into AWS to Azure. The fact that we've boiled it down to the personal matter of digital transformation. It can be whatever, turn a budgery into Hulk Hogan, which you do it yourself. It all comes down to the comms, the people, the stakeholders, and understanding decisions that you're expected to roll out. And relaying that
and what the kind of
I sound good at this, and honestly, it didn't happen that today. It just didn't happen.
Many years of stress and bullshit, But understanding that vision, and of course, when we say digital transformation, I am inclined, because I'm a tech project manager, to think tech. But no, there's culture, there's people, there's processes, geography, all that sort of good stuff. All hideous sometimes to manage. I think a lot of people these days, when they're not in the office, have the opportunity to, dare we say, look for other jobs more freely. Then perhaps their eyes are more open. There's more risk to data just walking out the door. It can be really hard to do, and I imagine it's only going to get harder, dare we say, because people have got or will have maybe more choices.
And the market is very competitive.
I was going to say,
it's just something that. We were talking about earlier. That is something that you start something, and before you even get through half of it, then another one.
I was going to say something's been upgraded or whatever, and the company wants to adopt it. Or there's new ways of doing things.
As Adler put it, you get it dumped on you.
Yes. So
that's what project managers get it dumped on us. Exactly. So there's nothing constant but change.
Exactly.
Nothing changes but you.
And I imagine, of course, we because we were so desperately keen to get into the conversation. You've been doing this a number of years, and I imagine this is your chosen path for the future.
Just a few minutes,
You're Googling it.
He's on the bins.
Exactly. Well, in which case, I think on that last laugh, we'll wrap it up for this week. I'm just looking at the clock slightly behind us. We've been experimenting, incidentally, with the duration of the podcast, and we have some numbers on trying to keep it around the 30 minutes. So if you're still here, thank you so much, Danny.
What we want to encourage more is in the comments below is autohosts@InfoMattersPodcast.com. Is send us some of your questions or send us an area.
If somebody we can get somebody in.
Something that's funny that's related to yourselves that we can bring a host on or we can talk to ourselves. We can even bring you on. So if you feel that you want to join the show, we are going to start bringing in people from outside the bunker on a very secure VPN.
Yes.
With zero trust.
Yeah, I see what we did there,
So please get in touch. Again, if you enjoy this, you ring the bell and subscribe. Thank you to our partners, extelligence.cz or .com. They're a powerhouse of IT resources.
Yes, sir.
Anything from an analyst to a project manager to someone like Hulk Hogan there, Adler. There are many opportunities. And as we discussed before, Kenny was saying, and both Adler was saying, people have more time to look around these days because you're not tied in by four walls of an office. And our forum here is for you to tell us what you feel, your experiences.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think any and all feedback is always welcome. From me, I think Adel, thank you for joining us.
Thanks very much.
Any further questions from yourself there? You haven't asked any. Bloody hell. Give him a glass of pop and off he pops.
Absolutely. Keep you lubricated.
I'm glad you guys had a good dialogue between the two of you. So
yeah, we tend to do that.
We're going to get ribbed for this one.
Thanks for letting me watch.
Well, the next next 3 minutes, we keep silent.
All right. On that note, see you next time.
I have nothing.
Be gentle with the feedback, and we are conscious that we can, or indeed I do, answer the questions before after I've asked them, if that makes sense. Anyway, we'll maybe cut this out. We'll see. Maybe we'll leave it in for a laugh.
So you can vote yes or no.
You can vote yes or no. Just before Khaled behind the camera has a heart attack, we'll bid you goodbye and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Take
care, guys.
Thank you.